We're back, and we're continuing a very important conversation with Colonel Grant Newsham, I think one of the most brilliant analysts of what is developing in the Far East at the moment in terms of the Chinese Communist Party, its ambitions, its capabilities to wage war, most obviously against Taiwan, but perhaps others in the region as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about aspects of that. But, Colonel, you mentioned that the Chinese, before the break, that the Chinese have had time to put into place spies and other operatives that would be able to tell them um, about the capabilities and presumably give them some additional capacity of their own to neutralize the capabilities of the Taiwanese to attack the mainland, for example. This raises a larger question of what I guess been described as a fifth column, or collaborators, agents, or spies, or what have you, in place in Taiwan today. And I've had differing views of this. That some have said yes, it's a serious problem. Others have said it used to be a serious problem, but the Taiwanese have really done a great job of rolling up those kinds of elements that the Chinese have put into place. Where do you come down on this question, sir?
I think it's a problem that the Taiwanese and us really need to take seriously. Uh, it doesn't take a whole lot to really disrupt a country using the so called fifth columnists. As far as getting the weaponry into Taiwan, I don't think that's a huge problem. What you really need are small arms and some explosives and the like. And there are just regular smuggling routes between the mainland of China and Taiwan with high speed boats. And it's just been going on forever. And it's simply not a problem to get the hardware in. Trying to keep it undetected that's another question. But in terms of moving things in and out of the country, I don't think it's all that hard. And as I said, what you really need is you just need a relatively small number of people who will shoot things up, attack police
Yeah.
stations, whatever, fire departments, schools, etc., and just cause that kind of mayhem and chaos
Mm-hmm.
while another attack is going on, and then the Chinese say, "Well, we're just coming to protect the Taiwanese who want to be or trying to prevent independence," something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the fifth column problem is one that really should be taken seriously in
I
Taiwan's
agree with you.
case.
I agree with you, sir. Let me turn to another topic that bears on, hopefully, the Chinese calculus. Uh, that is the Japanese government's evolving position, both with respect to Taiwan and with respect to participating more, shall we say, expansively in the Western Pacific's security arrangements. You've recently written a piece, I believe, for the Epoch Times about this, keying off of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's statement at the Shangri La Dialogue a couple of weeks ago. Remind us what he said there and what we should make of it.
Well, he gave what for Japan was a pretty full throated defense of uh, liberty in the Asia Pacific and taking on China. He spoke about it elliptically, as diplomats or leaders will sometimes do, but it was very clear what he said. He also said specifically that he was going to increase. He said it there and elsewhere, but he's going to increase defense spending two times and significantly increase Japan's defense within 5 years or so. But that's the problem: is in all of these statements about increasing defense, increasing spending, it's not clear exactly what Japan is going to do. Uh, and I haven't seen a sort of a thought out scheme for how that's going to work. But at least there's an awareness of what needs done. But the specifics, I think, still need a lot of work. And that's where it'd be nice to see the United States and the Japanese talk about this.
Yeah. One piece that you picked up on in this article were deployments of maritime forces by the Japanese. in exercises and port calls and the like. Um, and this is again against the backdrop, Colonel, as you've talked about with me in the past, of a growing assertiveness, shall we say, on the Chinese Japanese part that a Chinese attack against Taiwan would be a very mortal problem for Japan as well. So, talk a bit, if you would, about this question of the Japanese maritime self-defense forces, as they're called, becoming much more involved in the collaborative efforts with allied nations to both demonstrate presence and, as necessary, the capability to come to the aid of Taiwan.
Well, the Japanese Navy has always had a very good relationship with the US Navy. And I think that it provides excellent support. And in the event of a fight over Taiwan, I think the Japanese Navy will get involved, probably regardless of what Japan's headquarters says. And as you've mentioned, the Japanese Navy and the rest of the self defense force is doing more things in more places throughout the region, involving in exercises, training, and various engagements, things that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. What happened most recently is the Japanese dispatched a naval task force throughout the Pacific, and it's going to all sorts of places. But the key thing is, it's led by an amphibious ship, and it has two destroyers with it and a submarine at least. And this is for warfighting. Usually, Japan would have tried to set these things up as, humanitarian assistance, a goodwill, visits, etc. Try to depict it as unthreatening. And
Mm-hmm.
while one task force isn't a huge threat in itself, the fact they have gone out with warships throughout the region, it tells you plenty. I would note, however, that the Japanese Navy probably needs to be about doubled in size for all the capability, for all the missions it has to do, and for the threat it faces. It's much too small. What it has is
Yes.
very good, but there's no nice way to say it, but it's just too small.
Well, this sounds like a complaint about our own naval forces at the
Mhm.
moment, including, of course, your service, the Marine Corps' capabilities are woefully inadequate, it seems, to the tasks that we're likely to face, particularly as a result of this massive buildup by the Chinese in terms of their combatant forces, naval, missile, long range aircraft, and the like. Very quickly, we've got just a minute left with you, Colonel. Your recommendation as to how we proceed in light of that shortfall in our own capabilities.
Well, you've got to get your act together. I'm still waiting for that plan about how we are going to build up our Navy to the point it can just do the necessary things it's got to do. Given
Mm,
the shooting hasn't started, the war has, not the shooting. But it needs to get bigger. It needs to get out of this ridiculous social engineering, this social justice effort. It needs to remember that
sure.
its purpose is to fight, and that's just the Navy. And of course, that's just one part of the spectrum. Where you do have to
Mhm.
get your own financial house in order. And as I say, stop trying to destroy each other in this country, or better said, one side trying to destroy the other is more like it.
Amen. Amen. I take it you're referring, at least in part, there to the idea that the Navy ought to be focused on pronouns and their management rather than warfighting. Not a particularly sensible approach to the Chinese Communist Party and the threat that it represents to us.
Mhm.
Colonel, thank you for your time as always, sir, as well as your expertise. Your leadership in all of these areas is deeply appreciated, particularly by those of us at the Center for Security Policy. I look forward to talking with you again in the very near future. Next up, we're going to speak with Bill Walton. We'll take a look at some of the economic and financial developments of the day, including a number of meetings taking place in Europe. That and more on the other side of a very short break with Bill Walton, the host of The Bill Walton Show, right after this.